The Presidential Gallery at the U.S. Air Force Museum invites us to explore the evolution of Air Force One through iconic aircraft like Harry Truman's Independence and Dwight Eisenhower's Columbine 3. These planes weren't just modes of transport, they were flying command centers equipped to lead a nation on the move. Let's walk through this remarkable exhibit to discover the legacy and engineering behind these presidential giants. The VC54C Sacred Cow, a modified Douglas C-54 Skymaster, served as the first dedicated presidential aircraft for President Franklin D. Roosevelt, marking a significant milestone in secure executive transport. It featured a customized interior with a private stateroom, conference area, and a wheelchair lift to accommodate the president's needs. Used primarily in 1944 and 1945, it set the precedent for the modern Air Force One fleet. This Douglas VC118, named the Independence, was a modified DC-6 airliner commissioned on July 4, 1947, as the second aircraft built specifically to transport the President of the United States. It featured a luxurious interior with a presidential stateroom, 24 passenger seats or 12 sleeper berths, and a distinctive eagle paint scheme symbolizing American power. The aircraft's most notable mission was carrying President Harry S. Truman to Wake Island in October 1950 for a critical meeting with General Douglas MacArthur during the Korean War. The VC121E Coline 3, a Lockheed Constellation, served as President Dwight D. Eisenhower's personal aircraft from 1954 until he left office in January 1961. It was the only Lockheed VC-121E ever built and was a military version of the famous Lockheed L-1049 Super Constellation commercial airliner, featuring a fuselage stretched 18 feet longer than earlier versions. Eisenhower named this aircraft Columbine 3 after the official state flower of Colorado in honor of his wife Mamie, and it was the first aircraft known as Air Force One. This Bell UH-13J is one of two helicopters purchased in 1957 to serve as the first dedicated presidential helicopters. This one carried President Dwight D. Eisenhower on July 12, 1957, during a simulated nuclear alert, marking the first time a president flew in a presidential helicopter. It featured modifications like all-metal rotor blades and a tinted plexiglass nose bubble. The Aero Commander U-4B, a military version of the Aero Commander 680, served as a presidential transport aircraft for President Dwight D. Eisenhower from 1956 to 1960. It was the first presidential aircraft to feature the now iconic blue and white livery, and the first to have only two engines. President Eisenhower, an experienced pilot, often took the controls during short trips between Washington, D.C. and his farm in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. SAM 26000 played a pivotal role during the Kennedy administration, including transporting President Kennedy to Berlin in June 1963 for his famous Ich bin ein Berliner speech. On November 22, 1963, after President Kennedy's assassination, Vice President Lyndon Johnson was sworn in as president aboard SAM 26000, and the aircraft carried Kennedy's body and President Johnson back to Washington, D.C. The aircraft continued to serve during the Johnson and Nixon administrations, including transporting President Nixon to China in 1972 for his historic visit. The VC-140B was used extensively during the presidencies of Lyndon Johnson, Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter, and Ronald Reagan. It played a crucial role in facilitating rapid and secure transportation for U.S. leaders both domestically and internationally, although it never served as the primary presidential aircraft. It was a military variant of the Lockheed Model 1329 Jetstar, designed for executive airlift missions. The Beechcraft VC-6A, a military variant of the King Air B-90, was acquired by the U.S. Air Force in 1966 to transport President Lyndon Johnson between Bergstrom Air Force Base in Texas and his family ranch near Johnson City. Due to the short runway at the ranch, the VC-6A served as a shuttle aircraft, with the president flying into Bergstrom on a larger jet and then transferring to the VC-6A for the final leg of the journey. The aircraft was affectionately nicknamed the Lady Bird Special after First Lady Claudia Lady Bird Johnson. The C-20B, a military variant of the Gulfstream III, provided executive airlift to thousands of senior American leaders for more than 2 decades. During its service, It carried former Presidents James Carter, Gerald Ford, George H.W. Bush, and William Clinton, as well as presidential spouses, secretaries of state and defense, foreign dignitaries, and numerous high-ranking civilian and military officials. From August 1968 until early 1973, a T-39A Sabre liner was assigned to Bergstrom Air Force Base in Texas to support former President Lyndon Johnson's travel to and from his ranch in nearby Stonewall. Originally configured for a crew of 2 and 4 passengers, the aircraft was retrofitted with a VIP interior to accommodate 6 passengers and 3 crew members. After President Johnson's death in 1973, it continued to serve as an executive transport for various government officials. From Franklin to Kennedy and beyond, these aircraft weren't just planes. They were flying symbols of American leadership. If you found this as fascinating as I did, hit that like button and subscribe for more hidden stories of U.S. history. See you on the next journey.